You're listening to the Boss Lady Generation podcast with Elle Westley. The Boss Lady Generation community is a group of worldwide women who have made a decision to take charge of their lives and be their own boss. Our goal is to empower women entrepreneurs of all ages to take action and pursue their dreams on their own terms. For more information and to join Boss Lady Generation for free, go to bossladygeneration.com to sign up now. And now, on with the show. Hey Boss Ladies, this is Elle Westley and you're listening to the Boss Lady Generation podcast. This is podcast episode number 3, and continuing the theme this month, we're talking about renewal in the new year. My guest this week is a fine artist, founder of the Creative Circle, and self-proclaimed visual poet. She's also the mother of 8 children, and she runs a full-time online art business. She's an active collaborator, has more than 3 online shops, works at an art gallery, and is also a pastor's wife and my dear friend. Please welcome my creative guest, a true inspiration, Donna Marie Buchanan. Hi, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
How in the world do you do it all?
Well, I don't. My husband says you have a curated life, and online, I guess. But yeah, I really don't do it all. I kind of try to take things one at a time and slow, and probably the thing that suffers most is certain parts of the house, I would say, that you wouldn't want to see, maybe.
Well, there really is no excuse. I mean, if you can do it with 8 kids, run an online business, and have your creative enterprise going, then anyone can do it, right?
I would think so. I mean, I think it's true that there's times of life when it wouldn't work as well. Like right after my twins were born, it would have been too much to try to start something like this. But I think if you're at the right time of your life, you can handle a lot.
Yeah.
So,
for sure. So how long have you been an online artist?
I've been an online artist for about, coming up on 3 years now. About 2.5 years ago, I started posting my art every day and starting a daily practice. And then from there, I started getting requests for illustrations, and that kind of grew into the business I have now.
So let's talk about how you got started. Have you always known that this was something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I have kind of broad interests, so I can't say that I always wanted to be an artist and only an artist, but definitely had that spark in me from a young age. I had a really good art teacher when I was in 5th grade and 4th grade as well, and she was a professional artist, and she really inspired me, and I definitely felt that spark. I considered taking art in college, but I was kind of discouraged from that because it was said that you couldn't make a good living at it. So, yeah, but I've always had an interest in it, and when I got a chance to make it a part of my daily life as an adult, I went ahead and did it. So,
well, it's no secret I am a huge fan of your art, your inspired creativity, and just the beauty that comes forth from what you make. It's just so incredible, and that's not even a really good justification of what you do. But what made you decide to actually pursue this path as a career?
Well, I think I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial desire, but I never really knew what would do that. In fact, I did sell my art a little bit when I was a teenager. So,
no, I think that's actually really intriguing because this just proves that this has been something in your life from a young age through.
Yeah, when I was trying to make money for college, I sold some art pieces at that point. And so I think when I saw an interest in people having me illustrate for them. And then later on, there was a woman who asked to buy a painting, and I just thought, I would really love to be able to do this. And I think the most amazing thing to me is when I sell a piece of work or even just share it online, it's like the joy that I get in making it is multiplied so much. Because when a person buys a piece of artwork, it really does have a meaning for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a meaningful thing to me to be able to spread my work around. So, if that makes sense.
Now, did you have any formal training?
I did well, like I said, I did have a really good art teacher when I was in grade school, and she taught us things like perspective and things like that. I don't use a lot of the formal perspective that I learned then. I also took an art class in college, and I kind of took it with the thought in mind, well, if I get an A in this, maybe I'll go ahead and take more art courses and maybe even change my major. But I didn't, and it was one of those courses that's to weed out the majors, when they're just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, well, if I can't be the best artist, there's enough mediocre art in the world, so I'm just not going to pursue this.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you did. In the end, it still.
But I did, yeah.
So what did
I
you
think
end up majoring in?
My major was biology, actually.
Oh,
so,
wow.
But I was actually, I kind of approached biology from a very aesthetic perspective, I think. I was just fascinated by looking at things under the microscope and just the amount of detail that is in the world that we can't see, that God put there. It just stunning to me that it's not like this world is just a set that's all one, two-dimensional, three-dimensional. There's just deeper dimensions to it that you just can never get to the end of.
Yeah.
And that's the way I would look at biology when I was studying it, and it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating how intricate nature is. And that's really interesting you majored in biology, because that was the other subject that I was really fascinated with as well. But I went for
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went for music and interior design because I'm more art focused. But yeah, I was kind of interested in biology as well. I wanted to be a marine biologist. But that didn't happen. So a lot of people would love to create beautiful art, and they're very talented, but they don't see themselves being successful. And it sounds like you kind of went through that yourself and went through that thought process. And there's always this fear of being a starving artist. So what is it that finally catapulted you to the reality of actually living your dream?
I think part of it was just being willing to not not be the best, at least, not right away. I still strive to improve all the time, but I had to get beyond wanting to be good and just wanting to express in the best way I could the beauty that I see around me. And being just humble enough to be willing not to be the best, and being humble enough as well not to jive, not to really connect with everybody, because my art doesn't connect with everybody. It just connects with the people that it connects with, and I don't always know why that is, but it does bless those people that connect with it. So it's worth it.
And so that kind of revelation for you of deciding to make a choice to pursue this as something that you can make money with and be an entrepreneur, how did that come about?
I I think it was, it was when I just was posting my art every day and not really thinking that much about making money with it, just that it was a practice that I wanted to have, and then having people come to me and asking me to illustrate some books they'd written. I had two people approach me in 1 week and ask me to illustrate some self-published books for them. Um,
Wow.
so that just kind of gave me some hope, really, that there was a place for me in the art world. And
And
then,
that's all it takes sometimes is just a little bit of hope and maybe some outward recognition to spark that idea of, hey, maybe I really can do this. Maybe I really can make something out of this thing that I thought I just like to do on the side. Maybe I really could do this full time or make a full income on it.
right.
So I love how you go outside of the box with your canvases. Most artists use regular old canvas and paper to start out, but you started out with what you had available, and that took you to another level. And you started using nature as your canvas. So, I mean, you paint on leaves, you paint on bark, anything that you find in nature, and you have a really beautiful paper bag story. Can you share that with us?
Yes. Shortly after I sold my first painting, I started to wanted to sell more paintings, but I wanted to make it affordable for the following that I had at the time, which wasn't all that rich. And so um, I decided that I was going to do a painting every day on a paper bag, and that I was going to offer it to anybody who would join my Facebook group for $25, and the first person who said that they wanted it would get it. And so I was amazed at how many of those I sold. Those um, faces on paper bags is what I started with. I did a face every day, and then I would do a different theme every month for a while with just paper bags. So it was amazing to me how well that went over.
And you chose
So
paper bags because that was what you just had around the house.
yeah, it was like if it didn't sell, it wasn't going to put me out a lot on materials, and I also liked the aesthetic of it. Most of the paper bags I would crumple up real good first, so they had a lot of texture, and and just I liked the fact that it's a toned paper. It has a mid-tone to it, and you can play off of that to bring out darks and lights, which is another thing that I really love about the nature canvases as well. Um, it's almost like working on a toned paper. It really helps bring out the three dimensions.
So, talk to me about painting on leaves and bark and all these things that you find out in the woods. I mean, it is like a magical fairy forest that you live in, apparently.
I do. In the springtime, the trilliums bloom, and I had never really come across trilliums before, but they're just this beautiful white flower. And around here in the springtime, there's just the floor is just carpeted in the woods with them. And so I do kind of feel like sometimes I live in fairyland, but
That's
they
not a bad
are.
place to live in, by the way. I would like
Oh,
to live in
really?
fairyland.
It's not bad at all. So yeah, I think it just I I don't even remember where I got the idea of painting on the leaves or when I started. It might have been from a class I took, but I'm not sure. But I started painting faces on leaves sometime in the spring, and then I just enjoyed that so much. I tried to think of some other things that might work that were natural objects, and I came up with the idea of the birch bark. And then the other bark, I was walking along recently and found some bark with a lot of lichen growing on it, and it had some blank spots on it. I was like, oh, I could paint on that. And I almost like that best of all because the lichen just gives such an interesting effect. Um,
Yeah, it does.
so
It gives like a just it's that magic. It's like that magic fairy dust, right?
So yeah, it's kind of like Narnia or something like that. It's just a lot of fun, and I think even though there's a lot of sadness and grief in the world, there's a lot of beauty and wonder too. And I think if I can capture some of that wonder in my art, then it makes me glad. So
Well, I think you do capture that wonder, and it's clear that you see nature and our world differently. And I think that's what makes you such a special creative being and a gift to the world. So, you call yourself a visual poet, and you say in your blog that poetry calls for a spareness of expression and ability to say much with little. And you say, for me, this comes most naturally with leaves. So, what is your favorite medium to paint on?
that would be hard to say, but I do think probably there's limits to the natural canvases that sometimes I feel like going beyond. But I think because I do like a spareness of expression, that it would be the natural canvases. And I don't know which one I would pick at this point. I think when I wrote that, I hadn't even discovered the uh, the lichen bark yet, so I might say the lichen bark at this point is what I enjoy the most. But I also enjoy the
You're
leaves
always
very much.
finding new things and new mediums to
Yes.
paint on.
Yeah.
Continuing on, you say, in good poetry, the words have a luscious quality, a life of their own. Are you planning on writing a poetry book as well? Because your words are definitely art.
Well, thank you. I'm actually in the process right now of doing a collaboration with, I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 other poets for a book on Christmas, um, Christmas poetry. So that should be coming out next year
Oh, wow.
in
That's
time for the
exciting.
holidays. So
I
that'll
can't
be
wait
my
to see
first
it.
published poetry.
You're just ever growing with your creativeness. I just love it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of exciting, I gotta say. So,
So, for those of us who may not be so creative or consider ourselves creative, how can we bring more artistry into our lives, even if we don't think of ourselves as artists?
I really think that everybody is creative. I think there's different ways that people approach it, and I think it's just going with your interests mostly and letting them lead the way as far as not being afraid to bring your sense of beauty or your sense of expression into whatever it is that you do, whether it's making food or uh, I'm not sure about car mechanics, whether you can get real creative with that, but you can. I mean,
Hmm.
just maybe not in the aesthetic way that I'm used to. But it's, I think it's just being willing to not do this things the same way
Hmm.
all the time, but being open to different avenues
So,
of
do
expression.
you define being an artist as going outside of the boundaries and not limiting yourself?
Yeah, I think it's not limiting yourself. I don't know if it's going outside of the boundaries because I do strongly believe that there's nothing new in this world. And I'm
Me
sure
too.
that people were
Yeah.
painting on leaves long before there's any record of that kind of thing. But I think it's just being willing to step out of your own boundaries, maybe your own experience,
Hmm.
and and to think outside your own box, maybe is the
Yeah.
in a
I
good
always like to
way.
think that everyone has a creative being inside of them, and some people just haven't found it and they haven't unleashed it. And I hear people say, "Oh, I don't have a creative bone inside of me." And I'm like, "No, I
Yes,
think
I
you
don't
do.
believe that
I
either.
think we all do."
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of being confident enough that we're all made to be creative. We're made in the image of a creator, God, who put that into us, and it comes out, and even though you might not realize that it comes out, it comes out.
Yeah.
So
And it doesn't always have to be through painting or drawing or
no,
the
not at
typical
all.
forms, right? I mean, it can even be in sports, or in just the act of being a mom. There's all kinds of creative things, and in talking with others, and speaking with others, reading and writing. There's just so many different avenues that you can really express your creativity.
Yes, I think like even reading out loud to a kid, what is that but a form of acting almost? You're putting um, you're using different voices maybe and different inflections, and you're bringing the book alive for them. That's very creative work right there. And that's something that almost anybody is going to do at some point in time. So there's just
Yeah,
a world of opportunity out there for expressing yourself.
it's true. So, when thinking about renewal in the new year, do you think that people tend to leave out resolutions such as be more creative? Or do you think that people should have that on their list of New Year's resolutions?
Um, I think maybe be more creative might be a little bit abstract and difficult, but I mean, I would say you can make a resolution that way, but then to have a specific um, project or goal in mind that would help you to do that might be helpful.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's such a life enriching thing to be able to look at the world in a creative way and to express yourself in a creative way. And it's something that really is a blessing to the others around you. I know when I see people being creative, it always encourages me, and it usually makes me think in ways that I haven't before. So I think it's a worthwhile goal for anybody. And I'm not sure that it's one that's valued as much as
Hmm.
as some other things like related to health or getting organized and other things that maybe are equally important but not necessarily more so.
So, what is maybe one tangible thing that someone can do in the new year to tap into their creativity if they don't have that inside of them, or they don't think they have it inside of them?
That's hard to say. I think it depends on the person a lot, but I would say just pick one of your interests and go with it. If you're into food, try making bento boxes or just decide you're going to doodle when you're talking on the phone, or just start out with something easy and and see if it grows, and if that doesn't jive with you, try something else. It's a world of exploration that's
Hmm.
available.
And I find that it feeds on itself. So once you start doing one thing, you'll be inspired to do another, or you'll get a spark of inspiration to do something else. And I think also journaling helps with that creative process and tapping into your own creativity and what that means for you.
Oh yeah, I think I think for myself, my creativity was something that when I first started out my married life, and especially I was a mother shortly thereafter, I felt like I should put all of my energy into the family and not make a place for myself creatively. Um, that would be selfish.
Mm.
And it was when the twins were born that I realized that it had been such a big part of who I was before, and I was not, it wasn't totally out of my life, but I was not pursuing it on a daily basis because I was afraid that it was being selfish.
Mm.
And I realized that I just really needed it for my sanity at that point because there were so many things going on around me, with a lot of little ones in the house, that I needed something that I could put my energy into that was outside of me. And that's when I started spinning and knitting a lot. I had knitted a lot before, but I had really spun yarn from wool before. And that was something that I could just pick up when I had a few minutes and put it back down if I needed to take care of somebody. And that really just nourished my creativity in a lot of ways, in the years leading up to when I started getting more into the art. So,
And spinning daydreams, so the spinning is actually where the name of your business came from, right?
exactly, yeah. I love spinning yarn, and so I originally had a fiber blog, and then later on when I started my art business, I decided I wanted to keep that name because I just love that name. So,
Hmm.
and it's not that far off from what my art does. So,
No, it's not at all. So one of your goals for 2016 I saw is to paint 100 hands. I find that
yes.
fascinating. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, I think hands are very expressive. They're almost as expressive as faces, or maybe just as expressive as faces, but in a different way. And it was interesting. Um, I listen to a lot of audiobooks because it's easier than reading for me at this point in my life. But um, I was listening to a biography of Pablo Picasso, and his father was into art, and he said that art, you can you can tell an artist by his hands that that it's a very distinctive thing for an artist. And I just feel like it's hard to draw hands and paint them. And I really want to get a level of skill with that I don't have right now. And the only way to do that is to practice. So I'm just looking forward to the expressiveness that I can um, develop as I practice. So,
Yeah, I'm definitely not a skilled artist as far as drawing or painting, but definitely when I've tried to draw hands in the past, it hasn't come out very well. They're definitely hard to draw.
they're mysterious objects, I must say. It's like sometimes I get them, but I'm not sure why I've gotten them right. Because they're very complicated, really, and they move in so many different ways. So it's something I want to work on.
So, are you drawing 100 hands individually or 100 pairs of hands?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do 100 paintings with hands in them. Some of them might have two, and some of them might have one.
Hmm.
So I'm planning on doing a series of 4x4 paintings.
So, let's talk about your creative process. When you get a new commission, what is the very first thing that you do?
Well, I've been fortunate when I have commissions, to have a lot of creative leeway given me. I'm not sure I would accept a commission if it didn't give me a lot of creative leeway.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just I usually the ones that I've had have been um, a larger version of a smaller painting that I've done, and I really enjoy that opportunity to bring out the a level of detail that I wasn't able to get in the smaller painting, and to just expand on the theme. So I really, it's enjoyable to me to do a series of paintings that are similar but not quite the same, just to see the differences that come out. And the other kinds of commissions that I've had have been portraits, which are, I love doing faces, but I've got to say portraits are difficult. So Um,
can imagine.
yeah. So
So
when
how
I
long?
do a portrait, I'm just trying to get a really good likeness. And if I'm doing a series, working to make them go well together. So
How long does a typical painting take you to complete?
uh, it depends totally. You know, I tend to price my paintings by size, not the amount of time that it takes me, because it gets confusing for people
Mhm.
if because they can't see the amount of time that goes into it. But there'll be some small paintings that will take me a long time. Um, I do tend to try to limit myself and try to get things done within the day. But but then for a larger painting, obviously it will take days sometimes.
Mm.
Um, and then there's been other times with a large painting where just everything just comes together perfectly, and it doesn't take as long as some other large ones do. So it just totally depends on whether it's something that is a struggle to give birth to or not. I guess it's kind of like giving birth, because you
Yeah.
know you never know what kind of labor you're going to have until it comes. So yeah,
And you would know about that. So,
yes, I would. There's no C-sections in art. You do
oh,
have to do it yourself.
yeah, I can't even comment on that one. I have no experience there. So, do you map things out when you get a new commission? Are you more analytical, or do you just kind of like go meditate on it and sit in the woods and say, okay, how do I feel about this? Or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think there's both sides. I definitely don't go sit in the woods, but I do mull things over. I there will be a certain amount of analytical, like I just on a certain level, if I know that, like say the color scheme in someone's house that I'm making the piece for, I'll try to make the piece go with that color scheme as far as that goes within my aesthetic. So that's kind of on the analytical side. On the meditative side, I'm just trying to get ready to express either the essence of who the person is that I'm drawing, or the essence of the painting, that the concept that I've been asked to reveal in the painting. So there is some definitely thought that goes into it, and especially for a larger work, I don't usually have the right size canvas on hand, and so there will be a lot of thought as I'm waiting for that to come and thinking about what I want to do and how I'm going to do it.
I just think it's interesting because everyone's creative process is so different. Some people are more input output, even with their creativity as an artist, and some people are more inspiration driven. So it definitely varies.
Yeah,
How that works.
I think I very much tend toward being inspiration driven, more than analytical. I'm not a person to like write a whole bunch of stuff down before I start a painting, or make graphs, and I have started doing thumbnail sketches before I do something ahead of time, because I do want to try to get things right, but that's kind of a recent development for me. I do like to be able to go with the flow of my inspiration, and I don't want to ever get away from that. So
Yeah, I've been called a crazy artist before, even though I'm not a painting, drawing person. I do graphic
you're
design.
definitely an artist, I think, Elle.
Thank you. I have to make a kind of a mess, I say, to create my art, and I'm like inspiration everywhere, like the mad person just ripping paper apart. No, it's not really like that, but sometimes it feels like that, and it's like
Right.
I really do. in the end, I do have to kind of gather all kinds of just inspiration to look at it all and just kind of make it messy. And then I'm like, all of a sudden, the pieces fall together, and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. So
Yeah, that's very frequently happens for me. And sometimes it takes a while. I mean, it's there's been times when I've had to do two or three different versions of a painting, um, or paint, do just work and work and work until it comes out. It's definitely a part of the process.
would you call yourself a perfectionist?
Not at all. I don't. Okay, maybe not at all. I think there is a certain level on which I have ideals, um, that I think I am very willing to face the reality that this is not a perfect world,
Hmm.
and there's no such a thing as perfection in art. There's always something that could be different and or more refined, and I don't really, my aesthetic is not really to have everything perfect. I want some of the imperfection of this world to be reflected in my art. And I also, like I said, when you're doing that kind of visual poetry, when you have things perfect, they're they tend to be very well defined, and I want to have some mystery. And so, in order to have that mystery, I have to have some imperfection, I think.
Yeah.
Something that's not
Otherwise, it
totally
can.
defined.
I mean, I like the word that you used, refined, because I tend to lean towards perfectionism sometimes too much, and I'm like, nope, throw it away, scrap it, start over. And lately, I've been trying to leave a little imperfection in some things, just to change things up for myself mentally. It's like uncomfortable, but I'm like, it's okay. You're gonna live. You're gonna get through it. And it's interesting that, you can refine something all the way down to it being almost industrial feeling. And we have to be really careful when refining, because if you refine and refine and refine, then there's nothing left. And that's the
Yes.
point of art.
Yeah, it is almost the point of art. I mean, there's a sense in which I really appreciate the art of the people who are, what do they call it, hyperrealism, where it really does something that photography can't do, in that it just brings out such a level of detail on every plane that photography can't do. And yet, that's not what I aspire to in my art, because there really isn't any mystery left there. There's just a total refinement,
Yeah.
and that's not what I'm going for. So,
Yeah. I love leaving a little mystery and intrigue. I think that's perfect.
yes.
So, you have a lovely blog, by the way, that I enjoy reading. Would you mind reading an excerpt from your Autumn Tapestry blog post?
Sure. Autumn Tapestry. Autumn wakens the wanderlust in me, and I find myself wishing to go on long, nourishing walks. At home there waits for me the largest canvas I have yet to paint, and it begs to be filled with autumn splendor, a tapestry of plants, faces, and figures. On my walk, I begin to collect threads of autumn to weave into my composition. There is no lack.
That is so poignant and promising. I love it. So, you like to go on walks to gather inspiration, right?
Yes, it's not just inspiration. I think my brain works in a totally different way when I'm walking, and I just get a lot of creative ideas for everything when I'm walking, whether it's solving personal problems or coming up with ideas for paintings or poetry or business. It's just a very fertile time for me.
Hmm. Do you ever get a new commission that you're so excited to start, and you find that you're paralyzed and you actually can't start it?
Yeah, it can be a little frightening. Just getting the first beginnings can be frightening because the farther you go into a work, the harder it is to change your trajectory. But I tend to not let myself get too paralyzed. I think if I find myself feeling that way, I just decide it's time to plunge in because it's not a good thing being there.
You just push through it.
I just kind of push through it, yeah. And I think that's one thing that has been very helpful with having the daily art practice and really disciplining myself to try to finish a small painting every day for a period of time. It really helps you to get beyond the need to have everything just so. And it helps you realize that the best thing to do when you're feeling like you don't know what to do is just to start.
Right.
And things will come from there.
So do you think that if you're, say, on vacation for a week or so, and then you come back, does it feel like you have to get back into the zone, or is it easy to transition back into it?
Yeah, I didn't really take much of a vacation for Christmas. I painted something on Christmas Eve. Didn't paint anything Christmas Day, but then I did a couple paintings after Christmas. But then I got a little bit of an illness and I didn't do anything for just 2 days. And then coming back today, I really struggled and I did a painting that was okay, but I wasn't really that happy with it. But I did it. And I think that was the important thing, that I went ahead and pushed through and it's done. And tomorrow will probably be way better.
Right. It's similar to working out, I guess. If you stop working out for a period of time, it's going to be harder to get back into it.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep up the daily practice as much as you can. It really is helpful on so many levels. It helps you grow because you are, as an artist, in your skills and in your ability to express what you're feeling. And it's important on that level, but it's also important just for like you said, not feeling stuck and having the resources that you need to work through the problems that you have mentally to realize that you can do this. So
where do all these faces come from that you paint? Who are they? Are they real people or are they from your imagination?
I tend to use references, photo references from my paintings, but it's mostly just to provide some realistic shadowing. I don't always use them, but I usually use a photographic reference. But the features, I'm not usually trying to copy unless I'm doing a portrait. And I don't think most people would ever be able to tell that which picture I was copying or using the shadows from. Even the shadows become their own. And the shapes become their own. So it's kind of fun, actually, to see who comes out in a painting. And the expressions are different. I never really know quite where it's going to go.
Do you have a theme or do you decide who that person is after you're done with the painting? Or is that something that you decide ahead of time or it develops as you go?
I like to let it develop as I go. Sometimes I'll start a painting with a concept, but usually it doesn't come out the way I'm expecting. Sometimes, yeah, I will come out and there'll be a really strong sense of personality that I'll have with the person that, the face that's finished. I remember there's this one leaf that I did, and just the way it was a maple leaf and the way her face was, that top of the maple leaf looked like a crown on her head and she had a really regal bearing, and I was like, I think this must be the queen, So sometimes I get an idea of who it is and there'll be a sense of story there, and sometimes it's just still a mystery to me. It just depends.
They all seem to have this beautiful story. I'm interested in learning more about art abandonment. What exactly is that?
Well, it was started by a man, and can't remember his name right off the bat, but there's an art abandonment Facebook group, and there's also a book about art abandonment where he is encouraging people to leave their artwork in different public places for people to find and enjoy. And it's kind of a really neat thing to leave a little, like I'll leave a leaf in a grocery store or a coffee shop or a doctor's office for someone to find and pick up and take home. It's just a really neat thing to do.
Do you ever stick around to see if anyone or who gets your art?
I've never done that. I did leave some painted bark at the post office, and sometimes I'll leave a little note. And so with my blog on it, which I'm kind of getting away from now because our town is so small, they all know who I am. And so I left it at the post office with my blog on it, and so then they knew who it was, and the post office people actually wrote me a thank you.
Oh, really?
I got a letter from the post office. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, but usually I don't stick around. I try to, it's really kind of funny on the Facebook group, some people have mentioned how it just feels you feel very furtive when you're trying to leave the art, like you're doing something wrong or something. You're trying to get away with something. It's like shoplifting in reverse, and so I do kind of feel self-conscious about it.
Has anyone ever seen you abandoning your art?
I'm sure they have. There was one time when I just had to do it in a rip-roaring hurry, and I just walked into a restaurant and dropped it, and I'm pretty sure there were people watching me wondering what that was.
I swear, it's like a smash and grab in reverse. You run in and drop it and run back out.
Exactly. It's kind of funny.
That's hilarious. Do you think that creativity is essential for us to flourish in life?
I think so. I think you can have a good life, and I think you can have a life of purpose without really nourishing your creativity a lot. But I think you're probably not going to be it's not going to be quite as full a life as you could have otherwise. There's going to be things that are missing, maybe things you'll regret or the people around you will regret. I think we're meant to be creative people. So
yeah, I think we can't have a full life without some art in our lives, without some creative outlet. I think we're definitely meant to have that in our lives and to experience it and to share it with others.
Yeah, I think it's part of our humanity. It's something that animals don't do. We have a drive to express ourselves creatively. And animals, and I'm not saying animals that they're not different from each other. That's not what I mean. But it's a different kind of a thing. We're driven to creativity far beyond what animals do. And it's something that we're meant to do.
That's a really good point. Although if my dog could make her own art, I'm sure she would.
And I'm sure it would be wonderful.
Doggy paw prints. So tell us, what would you be doing if you weren't an artist today?
Well, if I wasn't an artist, I would be I would still be doing something that was creative, because that's just how I roll.
Yeah.
Like I said, I used to do the knitting. I really enjoy knitting lace. I do enjoy writing, although that takes up a lot of brain space for me, and I just don't have that kind of freedom mentally because there's so much else going on in my life right now. But I think there's just a ton of things that I enjoy doing creatively that would probably be filling in the gaps right now.
Mm-hmm. Who inspires you?
There's a lot of different artists that inspire me. I think the person who inspired me to start posting my art online is Samantha Blythe, and she just was posting things on her Facebook page and that she made, and I was like, huh, because I always thought that if you did that, that was kind of like showing off, and and it would annoy people, and I'm pretty sure I annoy some of my friends by posting my art online, but and she really helped me do that. So yeah, she just is a good friend, and kind of an iron sharpens iron relationship that she keeps me inspired.
Can you tell me about the Creative Circle?
Yeah, the Creative Circle is a place, it's a Facebook group where we're coming together to share our art. It's not necessarily just for visual artists, although most of us there are, but there's photographers and people who tend more towards writing as well. And we're just there to share our art and work toward having a daily art practice. And right now I've just started a series. It's going to be a 12-week series of worksheets that you can work through to help you establish a creative practice and keep it up. It's very challenging sometimes to build a new habit, and I think starting a creative habit is a practice worth establishing.
So do you have any new programs coming up for people to sign up for this new year?
Yes, you can still sign up for the creative practice group, even if you're a little bit late. You can go through the worksheets and start those anytime. So there's that. I'm also thinking of doing an art course in March. Me and my fellow people in the Creative Circle, that's my sister Teresa and Samantha Blythe, are planning on doing a series of classes on upcycled art and recycled art. So I'll be showing people how I paint on the natural surfaces, and then they'll also be showing how they take objects that might be otherwise thrown away and putting them together in ways that make some artwork.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it will be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
So what are your goals or New Year's resolutions besides painting 100 hands this year?
I want to paint more large pictures. My goal is to do at least one large painting a month, 24 by 24 and up. I started that this past year, but I haven't been doing it regularly. I want to be doing at least one large picture a month. I also am thinking about writing a coffee table type book with poetry and pictures of my artwork in it. So we'll see if that develops. That would be a big job, but I think it would be a lot of fun to put together. So
I'll buy it. I'm your first customer. So what's next for Donna Marie in 2016?
I'm just going to be working on making great art, and in my spare time, I'll be putting it out there for people to see and seeing what happens, because I think that is the exciting thing. It's almost like I can't plan too far ahead because the opportunities almost fall in your lap. It's exciting to see what's next around the bend. So
right, love it.
I'm kind of waiting to see like everybody else.
It has been such a pleasure speaking with you, knowing you, and it's an honor to call you my friend. Thank you so much for joining me today, Donna, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Elle.
Thanks for listening to the Boss Lady Generation podcast. If you are serious about pursuing your passion, living a life full of purpose, and following your dreams, then I encourage you to join Boss Lady Generation for free at bossladygeneration.com. Follow your dreams, pursue your passions, and live courageously.